please, you can tell your friend to tell a friend that we started. Invite someone for this evening session, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy it. You're going to benefit from this evening session. So we will just give room for more people to join. So please do remind your friends, invite someone new for this evening session, and yeah, it will be worth your time. So I will just give like 2-3 more minutes for more people to join. Yeah, thank you all for joining. I can see some familiar names on the list, but please do invite more people to join us. Thank you. Oh, our guest for this evening has joined us. Good evening, Dr. Uche. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hi, Daniel. Good evening.
Hi, Dr. Uche. Thank you for joining us. So I was just saying before you joined that we're going to give room for like 2 or 3 more minutes for more people to join and for other people to tell and just remind other people they've been invited that we're about to start.
Sure, that's all right.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No worries.
So I think while people are joining, let me just do like a basic introduction. Yet again, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for taking time out of your very busy Monday to join us this evening. We understand that it's the first day of the week and we're not going to waste your time, trust me. This evening, we're going to be addressing the topic, career development in a global market. And we have a very seasoned and well-equipped professional to address us on this issue. So please do not forget that as the presentation goes on, if you have any question relating to the presentation or any question that has to do with career development, please just use the chat box and drop your questions. We assure you that after the presentation, we would address those questions one by one. So please do feel free to drop your questions and comments if you have any. So I would shortly I will introduce Dr. Uche, who is going to be addressing us and going to be dissecting the topic. And I will briefly introduce him, and I'll also allow Dr. Uche just introduce himself. So Dr. Uche is going to tell us something a bit more personal, something we can just get off LinkedIn so that we can better connect with his professional and less professional side. Yeah, so yeah, please do not forget to still invite somebody to tell a friend that we have started. So on the dot of 7:05, I'll just introduce Dr. Uche and we'll take it from there. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Yeah, 7:05. So Dr. Uche Odunze is a research scientist specialized in drug delivery, gene therapy, and pharmaceutical drug development. He has a passion for helping young people achieve their career goals through education and through mentoring. So like I said earlier on, I believe that Dr. Uche is in the very right capacity to address us on this issue on career development in a global market. So Dr. Uche, I would hand over to you to just take us through your presentation and bless us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So someone was just asking for an ID. I guess a few people are looking for a link, and some people don't know how to join in with just an ID. So I was trying to send a message to someone, just use an ID to join in. So thanks so much for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you guys. So I am a pharmacist by profession, but I work as a research scientist. I work in a pharma company. And what I do basically is to do research on how to deliver different drugs, medicinal components, gene therapies, So I, on the side, spend quite a bit of time mentoring young people to pursue their careers, do things that inspire them, and try to be the best that they can be. So I tutor people and I just provide guidance, helping people with admissions and things like that. So what I'll be sharing with you today is a few things that I've learned from myself, some of the steps that I've taken as an individual, some of the things I also point to people. And I'm hoping that from today's discussion, you would have a little nudge and push to do something. Take yourself away from where you are right now to where you feel you can be. Okay, so I will share my screen, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
And just hop into the conversation. Okay, so we're talking about building a career in a global market, and specifically because of COVID at the moment, people are beginning to realize that you shouldn't limit yourself to one location. Businesses are beginning to think outside the box. Travel has largely been limited because of COVID. So more now than ever before, people are realizing how that the world is indeed a global village. And so, things like remote working has become forefront. People are embracing that in the industries, in companies. So for a lot of people, it's becoming apparent to them that their jobs are not secure, that there is the risk for automation and technology to replace them in what they do. So a lot of people had previously been viewing things as a job rather than a career. And for them, the realization that they're losing that job is making them think about, what am I going to do next? How am I going to get back into the job market? Where do I fit? And so I want you to, from this conversation, hopefully start thinking beyond a job. Start thinking beyond what I do in the office, and think more about how you fit into the future of work, how you fit into 10 years from now, realizing that artificial intelligence, automation will influence the nature of work. You probably don't have to travel to another country in the world to work there. You could be employed to work for a company in the US, from Nigeria, or from any other country in the world. So hopefully you can think about that. So what is a career? It's progress, actions taken by an individual throughout a lifetime. My manager, I work with AstraZeneca, a pharma company, and my manager says something occasionally. He says that you need to remember that a career is a long period. It's a long time. So it is a progress and the actions taken by a person throughout a lifetime, especially those related to that person's occupation. A career is often composed of jobs held, titles earned, work accomplished over a long period of time, rather than just referring to one position. Okay, so I'm going to have you, if you don't have a piece of paper or pen with you, I'm going to request that you can get something, if it's your phone, but I need you to be able to write a few things. So I'm going to ask you to do some exercises for yourself. So if you could please grab a pen, a paper, or you can open up a notepad, a note app on your phone, and then we can do some exercises. So my first question to you today is, do you have a career dream? And do you have a strategy to achieve it? Do you have a career dream and do you have a strategy to achieve it? I'm going to lead you through a couple of thought exercises, mind exercises, to help you answer this question eventually. But right now, if you could take a minute or two to answer this question to yourself, just write it down. what your career dream is, if you have one. If you don't have one, it's all right to write in your paper that I don't have one. But if you do have one, please write it down. You're the only one looking at it, but it's an honest question for yourself. I'll go back to the definition I put out there for a career. Look at this and basically think about a whole lifetime of work. Do you have a picture in your mind of what your career should look like? The second question is, if you have one, do you have a strategy to achieve this? Again, I will lead you through some thought exercises later on to help you build a strategy. But do you have a strategy at the moment for how to achieve your career dream? Okay, I'm going to take it that we've written this. If anyone needs some extra time, I guess you can just raise your hand and I will know that you need some more time to write what you're writing. If no one needs time, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, good. So I'm going to paint a picture. I'm going to give you a little bit of my personal experience and use that to paint a picture for you. So like I said to you earlier on, I'm a pharmacist, and well, I didn't initially want to be a pharmacist. My interest was initially to be a medical doctor, and I studied really hard to be a medical doctor. But you know, the way things work in Nigeria, when I was in Nigeria, it just didn't work out for me. I had a good grade, I had very fantastic grades, but what we call the catchment things just didn't work out for me. So I felt like I'd lost my career dream. But you know, my dad convinced me to to register in pharmacy and carry on with my program in pharmacy. But I started my first 2 years in university not really interested in pharmacy. So I'll tell you a little bit about that story. Before I applied to study medicine, you know, my friends, all of us, most of us, a few of them eventually became doctors, but most of us wanted to study medicine. All of us got in. Personally, the dreams I had, the picture I had in my mind when I was thinking of a career in medicine, picture I had actually was me diving into oceans and finding sea creatures and getting treatment things from sea creatures and giving them to patients. So in my mind, I was thinking of, I was finding new cures to diseases. I was picturing myself finding cures to people who had to like lose their limb and their arms would grow out and some crazy stuff. And I still remember my dad had a couple of books in his library in the house. There are books on about some, so he's a soil scientist, he studied agriculture, but the books on biology, on biotechnology and stuff like that. And those were things that were intriguing me, but I didn't understand them. So when I didn't get into medicine, I felt like I'd lost my dream, like I'd lost my career. And you know, initially I was encouraged to do really well in my first year of university in pharmacy, and then perhaps they'll switch me over to medicine. So I was motivated and I studied really hard and I had a first class in my first year. And then I was told, well, you're the best student in pharmacy, you know, it's going to move you to medicine. So boom, I was stuck in pharmacy. So I went into my second year in pharmacy, and we had this class. This class was some course in pharmacy, and they were talking about using genes and genetics in pharmacy. And I remember the lecturer asking people questions about what they wanted to do with pharmacy. So one of the advantages of pharmacy as a profession was that you're very flexible, very versatile. You could work in different areas. And people were saying what they thought they were going to do with their degree. And this was 200 level. And I said to him, I wanted to do something in genetics, pharmacy. And he looked at me and said, well, you're never going to be able to do that in Nigeria. And it was very public because there are people in the class, and that was a challenge to me. I felt like someone was speaking down, me. I'm talking about my dream, and someone said I can't do it. But that was it was a motive. It charged me up, And I worked hard. I trusted God. I worked hard, and I eventually graduated first class. And I immediately started applying for programs outside Nigeria to study. Got fortunate, got sponsored the masters in the US, and then I left to the UK for my PhD in animal medicines, and now I'm working, doing the exact thing I was dreaming about in gene. So I recall talking to a friend of mine when I got the offer I had with AstraZeneca and telling him what I was going to be doing, and he reminded me of that conversation in 200 level, which I'd forgotten. And he reminded me of when I said I was going to do something with genetics, and a lecturer said I couldn't do it. And that was when it occurred to me that, actually, I didn't need to be a doctor to do this. This is actually the way I could have gotten to do this. Like if I became a medical doctor, I probably wouldn't feel fulfilled anyway. This is what I was going to do. So that's an idea. Now, I'm not at the end of my career. I still have a picture ahead of me, but I wanted to give you that narrative to show to you that sometimes pictures and things might look like what you had in mind, you've been derailed from it, you've lost your opportunity, but you have to be able to have a long lifetime view of things. Okay, so back to the first question I asked about whether you had a career dream. I've put a couple of points here. I want you to look at them, and I want you to look at what you've written down on your career, what your career dream is, and see if what you've written down, see how what you've written down relates to this point here. What kind of life do you want? How much money do you need to support that life? How much risk sets you up to play at your edge? And I'll talk a little bit about each of these, just in a short while, without creating so much stress that you won't be able to enjoy your life. What kind of flexibility do you need, and what work environment would suit you best? What would you like to be doing or be responsible for? So look at these questions and look at what you've written now. Very important. I said people think about jobs, and I'm certainly hoping I can push you away from the thought about a job. I need a job. You need a job, but you need to think more about a career. The job you're trying to get, does it fit into this picture of a career for yourself? Will it help you get there? Question that is very important. What kind of life do you want? Do you want the kind of life where you're so busy you don't get to enjoy what you've worked for? Do you want the kind of life where you just have enough? It's okay. Whatever it is that you want, you need to be able to have this picture. So these are questions to ask yourself, and look at what you've written down and see if what you've written down fits into the answers you would give to these questions. How much flexibility do you need? And very importantly, what work environment suits you? I'll show you a couple of examples of people who are of fields, careers that have changed the landscape in Nigeria. I'm saying that because a lot of people think, well, if I'm going to have a good career, I must leave Nigeria. That's not always the case. There are certain professions that you would be better off staying in Nigeria at the moment doing, because Nigeria is the future of something like marketing. We have a population, and we are projected to be the third most populous country not long from now. So for certain people, being Nigeria is the best you should do. For some other people, it wouldn't be. For example, if I was, if I had my trainings and was going to achieve what I wanted to achieve, it's absolutely impossible for me to work in Nigeria because there are no resources for what I'm trying to do. If you want to be an astronaut, you could dream that, but you probably would be a lot faster achieving that if you're not in Nigeria. But if you wanted to work in agriculture, Nigeria is perhaps one of the best places you could be right now. If you wanted to be a human rights advocate, Nigeria is one of the best places that you can make a name for yourself. There are different things you should think of. what kind of work environment will suit you best? What kind of work environment will suit your career dream? Think about that. Not everyone should leave Nigeria. Okay, so if you've answered these questions yourself, let's move on. Let's talk about developing a career strategy. Now, this is another piece of exercise that I will encourage you to do, and we will give ourselves some time, perhaps 5 minutes. I suppose you would have identified what career you picture yourself in, what you might call a career dream. So just to check that you are in the right field, I'll give you an example. So the first big question here is identify your career options, your interests, your skills, and your values. Three important things to know what your options will be. I'll give you an example. I have I know, well, it's not a friend, it's an acquaintance who is a consultant with McKinsey. And he trained as a medical doctor, worked as a medical doctor in the UK and left practicing medicine to become a consultant. And, I asked him why he thought consulting was the career ambition for him, a dream, after studying medicine. And he had his very clear explanations. Now, comparing consulting to practicing medicine, there's a lot of similarities. So a few people would easily take those similarities as a reason why he should have been in medicine, but he saw beyond medicine. Okay, one example is barely enough time for yourself. If you're working in consulting, you spend almost all your time traveling around the world, working for clients, working under enormous amount of stress. You would do the same if you're a medical doctor. What skills do you need? You need to be able to think very quickly. You need to be able to find solutions to problems very quickly. But a medical doctor is trained to think strategically in a certain process. They don't deviate from a pattern. They have to think through that pattern and follow that protocol. Consulting is similar to that, but you have to have a lot of flexibility as well. Values. You want to save lives, you want to be a doctor, but what other things are your values? For him, he found that he didn't just want to go through all that stress, and he wanted to actually run a business. He wanted to be a business leader. So he had all the skill sets to be a successful doctor, but he wouldn't be fulfilled if he didn't get to the point where he was running a business. And consulting exposes you to a wide range of fields. You learn about different industries in a very short amount of time. Plus, you earn a lot more than the doctors. So for him, he considered, how much money do I need, to be satisfied in what I'm doing? I'm putting in perhaps the same amount of work, and I can choose to look at my values in different ways. But ultimately, what I want to do in the end is to run a business, right? So think again about your interests, your skills, right? Ben Carson talking about when he, was going in to be a neurosurgeon. I read his book quite a bit when I was trying to become a medical doctor. And, he was talking about having dexterity with your hands, your hands not shaky, being able to, stay very focused with your hands for a long period of time. You're going to be carrying out a surgery. And, since I've been working in the lab and doing research, I found that people who are trained or who are skilled to be medical doctors are usually sometimes very poor scientists, because it's a completely different skill set. You could be a fantastic medical doctor, but you do really poorly working as a scientist in the lab. And some people have both. That's what we've encountered. We've encountered people who've trained as medical doctors, but are just not good enough in the lab because they're completely different skill set. What skills do you have? Are you fantastic with designing? Are you fantastic with, building strategy, building relationships? Now think about your options. Now I'm going to show you options afterwards. A couple of people who have thought outside the box. What are your options? Don't think in a very narrow view that if you have to be a banker, or you have to work in HR, or you have to be a farmer, or you have to work in. You shouldn't think that way. Sometimes you might have to move through different jobs to get to that goal. all right? Now you need to prioritize, and you need to set these priorities, very important. What kind of work? I'm saying this because, when you start choosing to go after your career, you're going to have to make choices. You're going to have to decide. You might have to decide to leave a job. You might have to decide to take a job. You might have to decide to move, change locations, or stay in a particular location. You need to be able to prioritize certain things. Work-life balance. If you have a child, at what point do you feel like I can take the same kind of job against another? Plus, think about the future demand of what you want to do. So these questions are down to what you wrote before. Okay, I need you to keep going back to what you've written and think about your career dreams. What will the future look like for what I say I want to do? And set your goals, SMART goals. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. I'll give you an example of this. Don't be so abstract in your thinking about your career. You need to have an idea of timelines. How long am I giving myself to work on this job? That's a question and answer, a question you should ask yourself, and you should, an answer you should give to yourself. How long am I giving myself to work on this job? While I'm on this job, what do I want to achieve? Now, I'll give you an example. If your goal is to become the MD of an organization, doesn't matter what organization, you might choose what organization, but if your goal is to become the MD, there are certain things you will need to have, skills you need to have, to become an MD, to be considered for an MD. And those things are things you have to have gained in the course of your work experience. They're not things that will be taught to you in the university. So you need to be able to put those things into your measurable goals. So example, if you desire to be in the HR, work in HR and become the HR manager of a company, and you're currently working in a bank, and you're thinking, well, what I really want to do is to be HR manager. What I'm doing in the bank has zero to do with being a HR manager. Well, how can I get involved with things and gain skills in banking that will allow me to work as HR manager? One of the things you could do is, working with your team. How do you relate with people? How do you describe your relationship with people? How do you build networks? How do you give reports and feedback to people who report to you or your managers? And, you should be able to write down, I want to be able to say that I have managed 3 people, as an example. Or I want to be able to say that I have brought in this number of clients. And to be able to have done that, I had to have built this kind of relationship. There are goals you should be able to set. You're working as a banker, but that's not your goal. Your goal is to get the skills that will allow you to go into your HR management. So being on whatever job it is not a limitation at all. It is a question. The question for you is, can I get the skills that I need to move on to what the next option will be? You can't get that next option if you've not gotten those skills, because people will look at the skills to offer you the job. It's not just that you had a degree. It's what can you do? What have you done? So wherever you are right now, it might look like you're really far away from that career goal, but where you are is enough for you to build things to allow you make that move. Give yourself a time. If people are not going to allow you gain that skill where you are, you're wasting your time. Start thinking to leave. Okay, it's not enough to just sit down and just earn a salary. You're wasting your time. Okay, one thing I say to myself, and I encourage people to do this all the time, is to ask themselves, 5 years from now, if I stay where I am, if I'm doing what I'm doing 5 years from now, will I be proud of myself? Will I be satisfied with what I'm doing 5 years from now? Not today, not tomorrow. Can you see yourself 5 years from now? And 5 years from now, doing what I'm doing right now, do I see the chance that I will be happy with myself? And if I choose to move, whatever I choose to go to, will I be happy doing that thing 5 years from now? So be able to have that long-term view to whatever you're doing. Whatever you're doing right now is not a waste. It's enough for you to build skills. Okay. So set time, set goals for yourself. Whether they set them at the office or not, it's not your business. This is your career. You're building your own goals and your own life. So set your own goals, set your own time for those goals, and make sure these are specific enough. Okay, one exercise you can do for yourself is the job, the career you're interested in. Look at the moment for advertisements for those roles. Okay, you can go on LinkedIn, and you go on other job sites and look at the advertisements for a role that you are dreaming of going into, and look at what is written out as the requirements for those roles. Okay, and if you can look at those, set those requirements as your own goals, your targets. You want to add those things to your CV, to your resume over time. It might take you 5 years, that's all right. It might take you 10 years, that's all right. But just make sure you're ticking the boxes. You're adding these, because you're not going to need to be able to demonstrate those for you to make the next move, okay? All right, and the last bit is create an action plan. Very important, especially for those who want to leave Nigeria to study. Now, I should say this, for some of you to be able to achieve your career dreams, you will need to leave Nigeria. You will need to get an extra degree. You will need to study or get some extra certifications. If you find that that is essential to achieving your career goal, then you need to create an action plan. You need to set a time on those action plans. Okay, an example is if you need to go to the US for a degree, right? You can't go this year now, it has to be next year. And most of the schools will take people in from August next year, right? Admissions into American universities will open up somewhere around August of this year. So you need to be thinking about writing GRE before August. You need to be thinking about putting your application package all ready before October, October of this year. And if you need to get a scholarship, most admissions offering scholarships will be closing early December. Some of them would extend into January, but the earlier the better for you. You want to be the first. So these are things you have to write down. All right, I'm going to leave. I need to be studying for this by next year. And you need to walk towards it, right? What degrees you need to get, what employers do you want to work for? And very important, this bit, okay? The employer you work for is very important. People, sometimes we don't realize this. Who you work for really, really is important. Sometimes the next job you're looking for will consider you only because of the name of the employer on your CV. Because they assume that you've worked for this person and that means you must have been good to have gotten that offer. And you have to, you have to shoot for those jobs. They are not going to be given to you easily. Everybody is shooting for the same top jobs. But you have to stand out, and there are ways to stand out. One of those ways is to network. And that's why LinkedIn is there. LinkedIn is an amazing, amazing resource, okay? People are happy to respond to you as long as you're polite enough on LinkedIn. It's absolutely all right to network with people and reach out to people and say, hey, can you give me some ideas of like what's your work experience like here? Or I'm looking at this position, build a rapport with them. And sometimes people will be happy to refer you for a position in their companies. You need to build that network. You need to shoot for high companies. Now, don't settle for something low. And irrespective of what your grades look like, never settle for something cheap or low. You can always get that higher one. You can always, get the bigger one. You just need to shoot for it. All right. There's no harm in trying and being told no. That's the worst that'll happen. And no, but you keep trying, you will get in. You have to keep trying. And then you have to decide on what location you want to move to achieve your dreams, okay? But I think the last thing in there is you need to find yourself a role model. And this is important because sometimes you need to be able to see somebody doing what you want to do so that you are inspired by them. And these role models don't have to be really, really close to you in a relationship. They can be distant relationship. They have a distant relationship with you. They could probably not have any relationship at all with you, but you're admiring them. You're looking at them. It's important to have a picture ahead of you that you are looking at and making your decisions, okay? So you can almost use their path, their journey to chart yours, right? I'm conscious of the time now. Okay, so I've put this here. You don't need to look too much at this, but this should help you in making decisions. You know, in describing yourself, what's your ambition style? Are you a climber? Are you a leaper? Are you a passenger? Are you a dreamer? I'd encourage you to push yourself. Now, a lot of people are passengers, sadly, because a lot of people have been disappointed by the Nigerian situation. Like, I applied for jobs and I don't get any. So they're just passengers. Whatever comes, comes. I'm happy where I am. At least I'm getting the salary. Like, please don't be that person. 10 years from now, you don't want to simply be going into the office to get a salary at the end of the month. Please don't be that person. Some people just need that extra, they need that push. They always need to be pushed to do something. And for a lot of people, it's simply because they've been disappointed a lot of times. What you should aim for? Try to become a leaper. A leaper, consolidates and takes a jump. Very important. Now, there are different ways you can climb up, in your career. You can go step by step. And typically, if you stay in the same company, that's how you would move. You get promoted and then promoted and then promoted and then promoted. But leapers rarely stay in the same company. Okay, they do what I described to you previously. They get the skills they need for the next top role. And that role might be 2 steps higher than where they are in their current employer. And they leap. The next time they are 2 positions higher somewhere else. You move to a different company, because that's usually the only way you can leap, you can jump like that. And in a shorter period of time, they can get to the top of the ladder. That's where you should try to be, I'd say, if you want to achieve like a height. Okay, now this is me assuming you want to get to like that senior level. For some people, what they really want is just to be comfortable, and that's all right. I'm not saying you shouldn't be that. That's all right. If that's what you want, that's all right. But if that's not what you want, then you need to realize how you can get there, right? It's important. It's your career dream. You should define it yourself and you should stay with it. But if you do want something a lot more than just mere comfort, and there's a lot of benefits for that, because you can impact a lot more people in the world, help more people. Then your goal, I'd say, is try to become a leaper. And by that, I'm actively encouraging you to explore opportunities outside your current space, but gain skills. Now, be careful with saying something here. Don't be a grabber, So in trying to gain skills, make sure you're giving value back. Every company will be happy for you to grow and take your next step if they know you've been valuable to them. Okay, every manager will want you to advance your career. So they will give you the recommendation. Remember, if you're moving to another place, you will usually need a referral or recommendation. Make sure you are making impact. So don't just be all about getting this skill set so you can make the next jump. Let it be that you are adding value where you are while getting that skill set. And then when it's time to make the leap, someone will be happy to recommend you for that leap, because they would say, I know that even though he's been doing this, he's definitely good enough for this thing he's going for. Or she's good enough for that thing she's going for. Okay, so I'll wrap up with a couple of slides here, just to show you examples of people that have changed narratives, okay, or companies. In Nigeria, as an example, Farm Crowdy, Tribe Agric, and EZ Farming have completely changed what we recognize as farming in Nigeria. They have created a model that allows people to invest in agriculture. And you're not thinking about farmers as people who are just taking the tools on their shoulders and going to pick up things. The agriculture industry in Nigeria is really an opportunity for growth, massive growth. Currently, the government is supporting agriculture massively. But even if the government were, stop supporting agriculture, I think that the future is such that the private industry will be able to drive agriculture massively in Nigeria. And, so I'm showing this as an example of one way where you're not thinking in a narrow, view. Some of those people did not study agriculture in their first degree. Some of them are coming in with tech skills, but they are creating solutions in an industry that is profitable. Okay, and they become CEOs and stuff without having an agriculture degree. So you don't have to think in a narrow, narrow field view. FinTech, currently massive source of input of income in Nigeria. The Nigerian fintech space is attracting a lot of investment internationally. And I listened to Ayo's talk last week, and I was quite inspired by his talk. He also showed, said a little bit about how he left, how what he studied in university did not influence, what he's doing right now. Fintech, you don't have to have a tech degree. You just need to gain the skills. And Ayo pointed us to a couple of places that you can get skills right now, certifications to fit into this. So if you need to get the skills to work in this industry, okay, there are opportunities, and these are local industries, right? Art and culture. This is one that I wouldn't be able to speak a lot about, but some of these people, their arts, like there are lots more people. I couldn't just put all the names in there. But the Nigerian art, and if you're on Twitter, and you've seen a lot of people putting up some of their drawings and paintings, and that's attracting international audiences to the abilities of artists in Nigeria, right? You don't have to have studied fine arts to do this. You don't. If you are skilled in this, there is an opportunity to make a name for yourself and to grow yourself in this industry, right? You don't have to be an artist. You can actually be an art collector. There are things you can do in the industry. And I'm showing you industries that are attracting international attention, right, at the moment. Economics, politics, and governance. Well, one of the best places to be in Nigeria, apparently. If you're in politics, you get money, isn't it? But there's also the opportunities that's being created right now by activism. And someone I really like, and I like his path, is Hamzat Lawal. He's a young lad, but he's been, he's not recognized globally, but he only started, not necessarily as someone that anyone recognize, but he started what's called, follow the money and stuff like that, identifying the need, and a need that the international community will recognize. Corruption being a challenge, and people looking at, okay, if there's someone who can help us trace corruption or hold politicians accountable, then maybe we can, tag along with that person. And he's built a name and an industry for himself. Okay, there are other people who are, making impact. Like, they don't have to be trained as political scientists, but their expertise is making them attractive globally, right? These are people you can look at and choose if you want to model. Okay, 54 Gene and Helium Health. Helium Health, and that's in healthcare and biotech, and this is one industry that I am particularly interested in. Helium Health is an example. Right? It's pretty much technology and helping healthcare. It's not really about people necessarily being doctors. You don't have to be a doctor to make money in the healthcare industry. And at the moment in Nigeria, the healthcare industry that's a massive opportunity for money to be made, okay, investment, simply because the government has wasted the opportunity. Private sector can make a lot of money. As a pharmacist, I know that if you run a pharmacy in Nigeria, you have opportunities to make a lot of money. But realize that data and management of data is lacking in healthcare industry in Nigeria. And these are opportunities that people can take advantage of. You don't have to be a pharmacist or a medical doctor or a nurse to profit from these industries. And these are, examples of places. 54 Genes doing something remarkable right now with COVID. But they're we have biotech, no, not biotech, but biomedical labs in Nigeria, but they're not really working so hard. It took a private industry to come and challenge a lot of people, in government to do things in COVID. This is private, right? So opportunities are there. Okay, so these are just a couple of examples of that are there. I want you to listen to this video very quickly, so time, and it's just a video to challenge you on taking risks, and then I'll take questions that anyone has.
Let's talk about risk. The statistics show that most of us, when it comes to our careers, are extremely risk averse. You might dream of launching a business, of retraining and becoming a photographer, or of leaving your corporate job and joining a startup that'll change the world. But how many of you are actually going to do it? Every piece of research I can find says not enough. Too many people get stuck, not just in a job they don't like, but in the wrong career because, hey, we've all got bills to pay, right? The reality is, though, that not taking risks may well be the riskiest career move of all. In today's world, there really is very little job security, even in big established companies. If you're unhappy in your job or your career, it's likely that you'll perform poorly, leading to less responsibility, lower pay, and even less job satisfaction. And lack of fulfillment at work has been shown to have a severe impact on your mental, emotional, and physical health in the form of stress, depression, insomnia, and even increased risk of diabetes and heart disease. So why not embrace risk in your career? Stepping out of your comfort zone allows you to grow and develop. So why not put yourself there deliberately? Yes, you may make mistakes, but you'll learn from them. Yes, you might make less money for a little while, but you'll be happier. And yes, it might not work out, but your career is long and you'll have plenty of time to recover. Of course, your risks should be calculated. Make a plan, get some money in the bank, and give yourself a time limit. But risk in and of itself is nothing to be afraid of. Life is risky. It's so risky, in fact, that we won't get out alive. But fear dictating whether you achieve your goals, now that's something to be scared of.
Okay, I hope that message is kind of clear enough. You have to take a risk, and whether you do that, by exploring opportunities or just by sitting down, you are taking a risk. Make sure you're making a conscious effort to take a risk that will be beneficial for you in the future. Okay, that's it. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Uche. That was mind-blowing. I must say a very, very big thank you. And I know that every other person listening has really taken something away from this session. Please, if you have questions, like I said, please drop your questions in the chat section of the application and we'll address your questions. But before we go on, please, I would like us to know that we can catch a replay of this session. So in case you didn't start from the beginning, or in case you came late or you had network issues, so you can catch a replay of this session and a replay of other sessions and episodes we've had in the past. On YouTube, we are Dreamboard. So just go on YouTube and search for Dreamboard. You will find our account. On Anchor FM, on Spotify, on Pocket Cast, on podcast on the iOS, that's like your iPhone devices, your MacBook, and on podcast on Android devices. We are Podcast by Dreamboard. So please, we're not playing here. You can see we are on every major outlet, every major social media platform. So please, you can catch today's episode and old episodes on our platform. So Dr. Uche, I have some questions as we're going by. Some people are asking questions on the side. So please permit me to just read those questions before others follow. Yeah, thank you. So the first question says, I am on a job that is not in line with my career goal. I am aware, but the job consumes all my time to truly go after my dreams. What do I do?
It's a perhaps not very peculiar situation for a lot of people. It is about calculating your costs and your risk. So I can't give you an answer that will fit every scenario. But I'd say to you, set a time. Okay, set a time. You now if I could draw a map, if you were going on a journey somewhere, sometimes you need to make detours. Some parts are not a straight road. Sometimes you need to turn left and then another left, and that would look like you're going back. But then when you take another right turn and then another right turn, you're now going forward, okay? So sometimes the detours would look like you are regressing, but in reality, you are one step closer to your goal, because that's the only way you can get there. There's no other way, right? So it's about calculated risks. If you feel like this job is robbing me of a career goal, then you need to set a time, and then you need to make a decision. Okay, the longer you stay there, the more unlikely you will be able to achieve your goal. Okay, but don't just leave. Save enough money. Give yourself a buffer, a time, a period. Take the risk that I might be without a job for a few months because I'm trying to take a risk. Or you might actually take a job that pays you less, but allows you to gain the skills that you need to move on your career. It's a calculated risk, but before you make that risk, make sure you have, provided a buffer for yourself, so you don't just quit your job and then you are, in limbo. Give yourself some time, save resources, and decide on whether you really are ready to make this move. But don't be afraid to take a lower pay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Uche. I will proceed to the next question. The question says, what happens when you don't know exactly what your career plan is? You know your skills, you know your interest, and you are at a job presently, but you don't really know what 5 years from now, what 7 years or 10 years from now is. What will your advice be to that person?
Well, I'm a Christian, and I believe in God helping us. I believe in the Holy Spirit guiding us. That would be my first advice. Talk to God about it. But beyond that, speak to people. If you don't know what the dream is, there should be somebody that you admire, who's probably alive, somebody's kind of job or somebody's lifestyle or somebody that you admire. Speak to them. Another thing you could do is speak to your manager, okay, and ask your manager, what do you think my strengths are? Get feedback from people, not just your manager, but other people. Okay, well, manager works directly with you, so they'll probably be able to give you a good, feedback on that. Ask them what they think your strengths are and what they think your weakness is, and ask them what they see you doing. To be honest, if a manager doesn't have a picture of you, doesn't see your strengths or cannot see your talents or your uniqueness, they're not worthy of being your manager. They're not deserving of that. Okay, you are you are losing a lot sitting down under someone who cannot see you for who you could be, because that's why they are there, to manage you. Okay, so your manager should be able to give you an idea of what they think. So I'd say speak to somebody, but God has a way of leading us. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Uche. Thank you, Dr. Uche. I'll proceed to the next question. I am on a job. I enjoy my job. I see a career in my job, but I hear promotion is at snail speed in the company I'm at. I do not want to be my bosses when I get to their level. Help.
So I did mention about leapers, right? Be careful though, not to just be in a hurry to run away. Don't burn bridges. That's what I'd say. Don't ever burn bridges, but you need to move. So one of the things I've learned here, at least in the UK, and work culture in the UK, is that people put a lot of value in the culture at work, and people are not afraid to move, really. But that's also part because they can. I understand the uniqueness of the Nigerian situation, but don't be afraid to move, but don't burn bridges. You're going to need them.
Thank you. Okay, so we have like 4 more minutes before we end the session. So please feel free. You can message me privately if you don't want to ask your question publicly, and I'll read it. The next question, Dr. Oche. I have quite a number of unique skills. I see a million things I can become and I can do. I do not know how to move from where I am to the ideas in my head because the ideas are a lot and I don't know how to make that transition. So do I go the school route, or do I just pick one of those businesses and do it? How do I move from where I'm at right now and to the ideas in my head?
So some people are really, really, really talented and they can do so many things. And that is a challenge for a lot of people like that. It's not unusual. But what I think is the case for most people is that there's usually something that is, that takes up a lot more of their thoughts. Something that engages them a lot more. Either because they are more intrigued by it, more interested in it, or because they enjoy it more, enjoy it, the best. And it's always important to prioritize. One of the lessons I've had from my manager is that if you want to go up, you need to try to make yourself as narrow, as thin as possible. The wider you are, the more you spread out, but then you don't go up. So sometimes you need to prioritize. There's no harm in having those extra things that you can engage yourself in and still run them on the side, but usually find that thing and you will, if you pause and just take a time, and this is an assessment you can do. You can put time to what you've been doing, look back at 1 week or 2 weeks ago and look at your calendar. Okay, this is one of the things you should learn to do as well. Fill up your calendar because it helps you to make decisions on what is actually your priority. Okay, and if you do have a calendar, you can go in your calendar and see what you've actually invested a lot more time on. Otherwise, sit back and think about what have I really invested more time on? What do I give more time to? What do I enjoy doing the best? Of all the things I enjoy doing, what is that one thing I love to do? And then prioritize. If that means going for studies, extra studies, then go for that. But prioritize.
Prioritize. Thank you so much, Dr. Uche. We have one more question for you this evening. Do you have any advice for applications to the UK or the US or Canada? What are the pros and cons? So I'm thinking as per application, probably job applications to the UK, the US or Canada, or probably school. What are the pros and cons?
Okay, so I kind of do this a lot for help people make these decisions. 2 minutes or 1 minute might not be enough to tell you the whole story, but it really comes down to you as an individual. I studied in the US and I studied in the UK. I can tell you a lot about that, but I've also, I'm quite informed, well, maybe not as much as someone who's living in Canada, but I'm quite informed on the process in Canada as well, because I did apply to schools in Canada as well. The process are different. Cost. Okay, so you need to think about yourself. One consideration is cost, opportunity for scholarships, whether you want to remain in the country or not. I think those are 3 important questions to put forward to yourself. Duration of study, perhaps, but not so much. Example for duration of study in the US, a PhD is about 5 years or more. In the UK, it's 3 to 4 years. So you can finish your PhD faster. A master's in the US is 2 years, in the UK is 1 year. So overall, the cost of studying in the UK is lower than the cost of studying in the US. But getting into American schools as well, you need to write GRE. You probably would need to write TOEFL. You don't need to write any exams to come into the UK for studies. However, your odds of getting a scholarship are higher in America than they are in the UK. Okay, so, and if you're applying to schools in America, you're going to need to have application fees, pay application fees for most of the schools. In the UK, you don't pay application fees either. So if cost is your main driver, I'd say to you, the UK is faster and cheaper. If the odds, well, currently with Trump and, with the political climate in America, I don't know what I'll say about staying back, but you decide for yourself what you want. If you were looking at where you would stay back to work, remuneration pay in America is a lot higher than in the UK and anywhere in the world. You earn a lot more there. But you can also consider other things like, quality of life, work-life balance, and then UK will come up, compared to the US. So if you need closer interactions around making a decision, you can reach out to me. That's something I do to guide people on making those decisions. But it comes down to the individual.
Thank you, Dr. Uche. So please, our time is fast spent. If you have further questions, please, Dr. Uche will drop his email in the comment section. So if you have questions, if you have things you want to run by him, please do reach out to him by sending a very gentle email for his consideration. Please do not forget that you can catch a replay of this episode and the previous episodes on our YouTube platform, Dreamboard Initiative, on Spotify, on Pocket Cast, on podcast on your iOS devices, and on the podcast on your Android devices at Podcast by Dreamboard. I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Uche, for dissecting and doing justice to this topic. If we were to pay you, I can imagine how much we would have had to pay you. So I must say a very, very big thank you. We sincerely and genuinely appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to address us. I also want to say a very big thank you to our audience. We appreciate you all for staying, for coming on time, and also staying till this very time. I'm seeing that we're not doing so badly. We just did like 2 minutes after 8 p.m. So yet again, I must say a very big thank you. Please do not forget to follow us on our social media platforms. So Dreamboard is on Instagram, I must say. So please do follow us on Instagram at Dreamboard Initiative to follow up with all our other sessions and to just see the good work that we're generally doing through the platform. So I think at this juncture, it's a good time to end. Please, Dr. Uche has dropped his email. So please, before we end this session, if you need to write it down or just take a screenshot, please just do it so you can reach out to him personally. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Dr. Uche. Do have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, bye.
Bye.